Hello, welcome to this week's yoga session. Today we're going to explore the balance between expansion and contraction, and this is a core component of all pandiculation. Pandiculating is how an animal stretches when it wakes up from a nap, or how a small child yawns and stretches without thinking. It involves expansion of some areas and muscles and a contraction of other areas. This results in a slight stiffening, and then the movement creates sensation and moves the sensation through the fascia, and this has a variety of benefits. Now, when we talk about expansion and contraction as being two opposite energies, and we'll notice that when we are contracted, we become very rigid, and there's not much freedom in this. Okay? On the other hand, if we expand out to our full range, again, we become kind of stiff and we lose freedom. When we're somewhere in between, there's a lot more room for energy and prana to flow through the body. So let's explore that in our yoga practice today and trying to find that balance in between. So find a comfortable seated position, draw the flesh out from the sit bones, tilt the pelvis forward, and then lifting up through the pelvic floor slightly, firming the abdomen a little bit, floating the chest, bringing the throat back, lengthening the back of the neck, and then broadening through the shoulder girdle. Now we'll explore the two extremes to notice how at either extreme we actually lose optionality, we lose freedom, and the prana, the breath, the life force, energy is blocked and can't move through the body the way it needs to for us to be genuinely healthy and vital. So first, let's see what happens when we allow the body to collapse. So I want you just to kind of slump. Okay? Breathe in, breathe out, pause, and then notice the amount of effort required to breathe in again. So whenever you're ready. And notice the volume of the inhale, how much and where the breath moves. Do that a couple times. Breathe out, relax, and then when you're ready, breathe in, just noticing how that feels. Now go to the other extreme. Lift the pelvic floor, but do it strongly. Firm the abdomen and lift the chest strongly. Broaden out through the shoulders as much as possible. Lengthen up through the back of the neck, through the crown of the head. And then try to really exaggerate that. Now try to breathe. And you'll notice that at this extreme the body becomes very rigid and stiff, and the breath can't move, and prana, life force, can't move through the body. So at the two extremes we lose that freedom for energy to move, but in between we have some room to explore. So this time, on a scale of 10, 10 being this really expanded, exaggerated expansion and lifting, and 0 being a very collapsed, compressed state, let's explore the space in between. And first, just find the greatest expansion that doesn't create a stiffening of the body. So from this collapsed state, just float up and float out. Broaden out through the shoulders. Release the shoulder blades. Float the chest. And now breathe. And notice how it feels to breathe in this point balance midway between the two extremes. Now we'll randomly assign this position a 5. So now 0 being collapsed, 10 being aggressively expanded, and 5 being where you were, find a 4. Now, when we talk about a 4, I'm not talking about the position your body occupies in space. I'm talking about the amount of effort required to maintain that position. Now a 3. Don't deliberately collapse. Just don't try so hard to maintain expansion. So you're still lifting and expanding, but with a 3. And then a 2. And then a 1. Now notice the difference. Breathe here. Notice the difference between 1 and go to 0. And now try to breathe. And this is particularly profound when we are not conscious, when we are unconscious of our body. So for instance, if you are watching TV or sitting around and you slip into this collapsed state, you'll find that your breathing falls apart. Okay? And the energy is blocked and doesn't move through the body freely anymore. So now let's go back to a 5. Lift the pelvic floor gently, firm the abdomen, float the chest, broaden the shoulders, lengthen up through the back of the neck. And then maybe go to a 6 or a 7. Just firming up a little bit, expanding a little bit more actively. Now breathe. And then somewhere between a 7 and a 3. Somewhere in between is probably the perfect place, maybe a 2, maybe even a 1, where we get the greatest freedom and optionality for prana, for life, for breath to move through the body, for energy to flow without being blocked. So just on your own, experiment, using a little more effort to expand, using a little less, and then try to find the perfect place, judging by how it affects your ability to breathe and how it feels. Now, throughout today's class, keep coming back to this idea of finding that space between the collapsed state and the aggressively expanded state, and then asking yourself, where is that perfect balance point? Every pose will be a little bit different. Starting with a twist, leading with the right shoulder, reaching behind, cross the left hand, lift, expand, rotate. And then on your own, just notice how it feels if you let yourself relax a little more, or if you engage a little bit more strongly in the pose. And think about measuring success by the movement of energy, the ability of energy to flow through the body without impediment. At one level, that's mechanical, the breath, the actual air moving through the body, but you can also think in more subtle energies moving through the body. Take one more breath. Coming back to center, switching sides, leading with the left shoulder. And again on the second side, exploring, trying to find that perfect sweet spot between collapsing and expanding. Couple more breaths. And coming back to center. Circling with the rib cage, first one direction, and then the opposite. And then rolling out the shoulders. And then extending your legs for staff, Dandasana. And we're going to have the feet a little wider than in the classic pose. Imagine putting a basketball between your feet and then bring your feet so that you're holding the basketball in the arches, between the arches of both feet. Reach the heels away, pull the toes back. Flare the toes, spread the toes wide. Now keeping that, reach the left sit bone back and then shift your weight, reach the right sit bone back. Tilt the pelvis forward, bring the navel forward, lift the chest up, float the shoulders up and back, draw the shoulder blades together and down. Now holding on to all of that, try to take the inner edge of your feet and reach away, and the outer edge of your feet pull towards you. Now, that may already be starting to activate the outer areas of the hips and thighs and buttocks, but if it isn't, begin to rotate the big toes towards each other. Try to reach the ball of the big toe away from you, the ball of the little toe towards you, and then try to touch the big toes together as you're doing that. And while you're doing that, lift the chest, roll the shoulders back and down, and take 3 more breaths. And then windshield wipers and bounce. Bend and straighten. And then bring the right heel in. And then move the right foot to the right and swing the left leg in front of you, lining up with the leg extending out in a straight line from the pelvis. Lift the chest. And then just leaning in for a gentle stretch. Bend the left knee as much as you need to keep any sensation out of the area behind the knees. Breathe deep. And use your exhale to relax. Try to keep the left foot active, the left leg activated, spreading the toes. Couple more breaths. Switch sides. Extend the right foot, bring the left heel in, move the left foot to the left, swing the right leg in front of you, lift, extend, and lean into a stretch, and again, bending the right knee as much as you need. If it feels better to keep the right leg straight and all the stretching sensations remain in the muscles, not the fascia behind the knee, that's fine. Couple more breaths. And then extend both legs and then bounce and roll. So you're going to try that again. And this time we're going to explore that basic principle about expansion and contraction in the same pose and focusing on the legs. Although this is true for the whole body, we'll focus on the legs in this next pose. So bring the right heel in. Now if you'll watch for just a moment. So if I turn a little bit so you can see. So typically when we're stretching, for most people, the leg can be very, very loose, and then we lean into a stretch. That's a very passive stretch. Now watch what I do with this leg. I tighten the muscles. So I take the muscles and I squeeze the thigh bone. So I'm taking all these muscles and I'm squeezing. And I'm squeezing here. And then as I'm doing that, I'm extending. So I'm expanding, but I'm also contracting. The muscles contracting, the skeleton expanding. And then I hold that as I come into my stretch. So when you're ready, going back to the first side, try to engage all the muscles in this leg and expand. Lengthen the bones. Contract the muscles and then find a gentle stretch. breathe into that. Couple more breaths. And then switch sides. Bring the left heel in. Extend the right leg. Move the foot to the side, swing the leg in front of you. Lift, extend, broaden, and then leaning forward and then activating the right leg. Try to grip the bones and expand the bones. So the muscles are hugging the thigh and the shin, but the bones are being extended. And then keeping that lift and extend the upper body and lean into a gentle stretch. Couple more breaths. And then cat-cow. Coming up to your hands and knees. Lift the tailbone, lower the belly, open the chest, look up, finish breathing in. Tuck the tailbone, round low back, mid back, upper back, tuck the chin, finish breathing out. Four or five more repetitions. Then back to neutral. Coming up into an upright position for camel. Knees hip width. Quarter turn to the right for twisted camel. Take the right hand, place it on the pelvis, on the thigh, or on the heel, but don't collapse to reach the floor. Keep lifting forward and up with the front surface of your body. And then a slight rotation, and then float the left arm overhead. Now look for where you feel the prana moving more freely through the body. So if you collapse a little bit, and notice how that feels when you breathe, and then expand too much, notice how that feels, and then find a perfect balance point between the extremes where the breath flows and where the energy flows through the body, through the fascia. One more breath. And coming back up to center. So one of the ways you know when you find that perfect balance point is that you are comfortable in the pose and you feel like you can hold it steady and comfortably and for longer. Quarter turn to the left. Take the left hand back. Float the right arm up. Firm the abdomen, lift the chest. Taking the hips and the belly forward, lifting the chest up. Slight rotation to the left. And then focus not on how far back you're reaching, but using just the right amount of expansion and the right amount of contraction. Think about firming up the body, keeping everything firm and expanding. in such a way that you feel the prana flowing freely through the body. One more breath, and then coming back to cat-cow. Standing forward bend. Tuck the toes, walk the hands in towards your knees, lift the knees, walk your hands in, and place your hands on your thighs, coming up a little higher, or hang into a forward bend if it feels better to you. Again, the knees bent just enough to keep the stretch out of the fascia behind the knee joint. Bend the left knee more. Straighten the right leg a little, not all the way though. Switch sides. It's giving the muscles a chance to continue to warm up at their own speed. If it starts to feel pleasant, lean in a little deeper, lift the tailbone, rotate the pelvis. Now balance both legs evenly. Take another breath or two. As you come up, buckle the knees, slip the hips under you, and coming up to standing. So now we'll explore the same idea of expansion and contraction, but this time in service to pandiculation. And pandiculation is really a way of exercising and moving prana through the fascia, through the connective tissue. And one of the ways you know when you're doing it successfully is it feels really good, like a really good yawn. So first, expansion. Take your arms and reach away and point your fingers behind you slightly, and then keep pushing and reaching out with the heels of your hands and back, taking the chest forward until you meet resistance. And notice how that feels, and notice where your skeleton ends up, the position of the bones in your body. Now shake out. So we moved into that position by expanding the front of the body. Now let's move into the same or similar position, but by contracting the muscles in the back. So float your arms out, but don't expand. Instead, find all the muscles in your back and use them to contract. So you end up in the same position, but by contracting the back. And then notice that the two positions are similar. They look similar to someone that looks casually, but it's a very different feeling. Shake out. Now the same thing coming forward. Expand the back as you bring your arms out in front of you. Shake out. Now this time contract the front, like you're flexing for bodybuilding competition. Shake out. Okay, now, pandiculation, we expand and contract, and then we can find a balance point. If expansion, complete expansion is a 10, and complete contraction is a 0, then we find something in between. So now, let us float the arms out and then expand lazily, and then find the muscles in your back and contract gently. And experiment with those two actions of expanding the front, contracting the back. Maybe let one be a little bit more than the other. And notice once again where you feel prana, life, energy moving through the body. Now shake out. Now fascia doesn't like to be kept in any position for a long period of time, and what it really loves is for sensation to flow through the fascia, like when you yawn, It's a wave. It comes and then it goes. So now let's do the same thing but with a little bit more of a wave-like fluid quality. Open and float the front of your body wider, and then ever so delicately contract the back. Now lift one heel, bend a knee, turn, and begin to move your fingers, your wrists, your elbows. Maybe even yawning. And then think about two things as you're doing this. The amount of expansion and then the amount of contraction. Now contraction, we could substitute the word stiffen or hug, where the muscles hug the bones a little bit. So think about stiffening your body and expanding. And then do that in such a way that you create sensation, and then adjust so the sensations are pleasant. Then move those sensations through the body, and if you do it just right, your body will start to release oxytocin and neuropeptides, nitric oxide, and a host of other molecules that are designed to enhance health and vitality. Shake out the shoulders a little bit, roll out the shoulders. Full 12-step sun salutation now. Coming to the front of your mat, make sure you got plenty of space behind you. Float the arms down, out and up as you breathe in. Swan dive as you breathe out. Take your right foot and reach back into a deep lunge. Hold your breath momentarily in plank. On the exhale, press down to the floor and then come up into cobra. Hold for 2 or 3 breaths. Expand the front of your body, contract the back. Press the tops of the feet down until the knees lift slightly. And then experiment. If you work too hard with contraction or with expansion, you cut off the prana. So try expanding too much, try contracting too much, and then try to find that balance point. Take a breath or two, downward facing dog. Tuck the toes under. Lift the hips up and reach the hips back. Pull your chest through towards your feet. Float the shoulder blades, inner armpits away from your feet. Spiral the arms and legs if you remember how. Now on the legs, all the muscles in the legs grip the bones, but at the same time we lift the tailbone and reach the heels down, expanding the bones, and then the muscles contract to hug the bones. A couple more breaths. On an inhalation, step the right foot all the way up to the front of your mat into a lunge. On the exhale, bring the left foot alongside. Overhead stretch as you breathe in, and back to prayer. Second side, sweep overhead, breathe in, swan dive, breathing out. Left foot leading, big lunge. Hold your breath in plank. On the exhale, press down. Pull through into cobra, roll the shoulders back. Press the feet down. And then think in terms of the flow of prana through the body as you explore your alignment, expanding through the front, especially the chest, contracting through the back, especially the upper back and mid back, the shoulder blades drawing in and down. One more breath. Downward facing dog. 3 or 4 more breaths. On an inhale, step the left foot up. On the exhale, place the right foot alongside. Sweep overhead. Breathe in. Float the arms down. Stand quietly for a breath or two. Now stepping the feet wide for Virabhadrasana 2, and a little bit wider than we normally would for Trikonasana, for triangle pose. And we'll go to the left. Turn the left foot out 90 degrees, turn the right foot in, or lift the right heel, take it wide, set it down. Now starting in the legs, just in Trikonasana, but bending the left knee just maybe 5 or 10%. Now, hug the muscles with the bones. Squeeze all the muscles into the bones. Another way to think about this is to stiffen or firm up the leg. And then keeping that, root through the ball of the big toe, front inner corner of the heel, and pull up and externally rotate your upper thigh. Try to roll your upper thigh away from me. And root the inner edge of your foot into the floor. Now, with your knee bent 10%, just work on that action, and then bend the knee 20% without losing the action. And then continue bending the knee until the knee is directly above your heel. Now, if that's difficult, bring your feet a little closer together and try again. On the other hand, if it's too easy, walk your left foot away from you and try it again. Until you get to vertical, the shin is vertical, knee directly above the heel, and you're getting a little bit of a challenge but not intimidated by the pose. Then focus on the upper body. Bring your shoulders back until they're directly above the hips. Straighten the back leg, strengthen the back leg. And then on the back leg, the same thing. Squeeze the bones with the muscles, and then pull up and out on the right thigh. And then on the left thigh, lengthen the inner thigh, contract the outer thigh, or spiral the leg. Sink your weight into the back hip. Float the arms, drop the shoulders, open the heart, turn just your head. Two or three more breaths. One more breath. Switch sides. Turn the right foot out, turn the left foot in. Bend the right knee 10%, and then spiral the right leg. Root through the inner edge, squeeze the bone with the muscles, or stiffen, or hug the bones, and then pull up and out on the thigh. Try to roll the top of your right thigh away from me. Root through the inner edge of the foot. Keeping that action, bend the knee 10% more, 20%, 30%, 40%, working your way into Virabhadrasana 2 without losing that spiral. Now, once the knee is bent at 90 degrees, another way to think about the spiral, it's the same action, but you can think about lengthening the inner thigh, contracting the outer thigh. So the knee swings away from me. Then square up your shoulders with your hips, spiral the back leg, sink into that back hip. And again, all the muscles squeezing the bones in the legs. And then expand through the groin. Float the arms, drop the shoulders, open the heart, turn the head to the right. 3 or 4 breaths. Notice if you're squeezing too much or not enough. Notice if you're expanding too strenuously or not enough. And then find that space in between where the pose feels most alive. It's also the position where you feel like you could hold the pose longer and benefit more. When you're finished, turn the feet pigeon-toed and then releasing. And you can either come down part way, supporting weight with your hands on your thighs, or if you can reach the floor comfortably, that's fine. Take a breath or two. And step your feet together. Bend the knees as you roll back up. Working now with chair pose. And after this, we'll take a little time to rest with the back roll. So work a little bit harder in this pose, knowing that whenever you're finished with the pose, and you can finish whenever you want, and when you're finished, we'll be coming down to the floor and doing something a little more relaxing. So in chair pose, once again, we're going to explore and see where the energy flows. So let's try an experiment and work at the two extremes just to see how they feel. We won't hold for long though. Float the arms overhead, and then this time do chair pose lazily. Bend the knees, tilt forward, sink the hips down a little bit, and then hold. And don't put forth much effort. And don't worry about expansion. And then come up, float your arms down, and then take a breath or two. Now this time we'll work at the other extreme, and we're going to contract too much and hold, but don't hold for long, and don't contract so much that you put yourself at risk of any injury or distress. And in that position, notice what happens to your breathing. So a much stronger expression of chair pose. Float the arms overhead. Now lift the pelvic floor, draw the abdomen in, lift the chest up, take your shoulders back and your chest forward. Keeping that, bend your knees, reach your hips back, tilt the pelvis forward, and then sink your hips down and see how close you can get to sitting in an imaginary chair, and then pull the shoulders back behind your ears. Now work too hard, and now notice what happens to your breathing. And then stretch up, breathe in, float the arms down, and rest. So most students practicing that pose are either too close to one extreme or to the other. And so what I want you to do is to experiment with finding that space between 0 and 10, between lazy and too much effort. And then notice whether a 4 feels better, or a 5, or 3, or 2, or 7. And measure success in terms of how it feels, in terms of the flow of prana, of your ability to breathe, but more subtle, of energy in prana to move through the cells and tissue and fascia. Float the arms overhead, lift the pelvis slightly, the pelvic floor, firm the abdomen slightly, float the chest slightly, draw the shoulders back slightly, but keep the belly firm. Bend the knees a little bit, reach the hips back a little bit, and then pause. And breathe. And think about expanding through the front of your body, contracting through the back. So the shoulder blades pull back and down, but keep the belly firm. Don't let the belly spill forward. Holding on to all of that, experiment working a little deeper or not quite so much, expanding, contracting, breathing. Now there'll be a perfect moment when it's time for you to rest If you get there a little bit sooner on your own, just come up, place your hands on your thighs, lean forward and rest. If you want to hold and work here a little longer though, take 5 or 6 more breaths. One more breath. Stretch up on the inhale. Straight back. Knees bent slightly. Support weight with your arms on your thighs. Take a breath or two. And either stay here or work your way further if your low back feels comfortable and your legs are okay with a deeper stretch. Two or three breaths. Coming down to your knees and then rolling up your blanket. If you have your own back roll, go ahead and set that up. If you're using a blanket, just roll it up as tight as you can from one end towards the other. Remember, if you unroll it, it gets smaller. If you roll it up more, it gets bigger, so you're in control. And you want the size of your roller to be large enough that you don't get bored, that you feel like you're getting some benefit, small enough that you can relax. And in each position, your body may react differently as we move down the spine, so you may have to change the size of the roller as you go. Our first position, the roller is in the upper third of the shoulder blades. You can support your head with your interlaced fingers, or you can extend the arms overhead or out to the side. Whatever feels most natural, most comfortable. And then breathe deeply, and with your exhale, just relaxing. 3 or 4 more breaths in this first position. When you're ready to adjust, lift the hips, push yourself over the roller an inch, set the hips down. Roller now in the middle of the shoulder blades. A couple more breaths. Once again, adjusting, lifting the hips, pushing until the roller reaches the lower third of the shoulder blades. Breath or two. On your next movement, adjust so the roller is just below the shoulder blades, center of the thoracic vertebra. Remember to adjust the size of your roller as you need to. Take a few breaths and then reposition. Slowly working your way down the length of your spine until the roller eventually reaches the top of the pelvis, the lower lumbar. Couple more minutes on your own. Take 4 or 5 breaths and then reposition, continuing on your own to work your way down over the next couple of minutes. Or 15 breaths to finish up. If you've already finished, just go back to your favorite spot. When you're finished, bend the knees, lift your hips, pull the roller out from under you, and then try to lower your kidneys, the low back, to the floor before the hips. Then bring the knees in, hug your knees into your chest. Rock side to side. Rolling to one side. And coming back to your hands and knees for cat-cow. And then back to neutral. Now we'll add an arm and a leg lift diagonally. Right leg, left arm. But as we do this, I want you to think about expanding the front of your body, contracting the back muscles, but emphasize at least 60-40. Emphasize the expansion of the front of the body, and then don't forget though to feel a contraction in the back. So take the right leg, float it back and up a little bit, find your balance, lift the left arm out in front of you. If you're having trouble with your balance, keep your fingertips on the floor and just focus on the leg. Now try to expand. Reach the chest forward, reach the right hip back, and then lift a little bit, and then find the muscles in the back of your body. And without losing the expansion in the front, just contract the back muscles a little bit to make it more interesting. Take a breath or two. And then cat-cow. And second side. Left leg, right arm. Expand, reaching forward with the chest, reaching away with the left hip. And then floating the shoulder and the thigh up. And then after you've expanded, find the back muscles and begin contracting. But don't lose the expansion in the front of your body. Let that be at least 60%. Couple more breaths. Cat-cow. and pigeon. Bring the right knee forward. Take your foot out to the side, the right foot. Or a better way to do it is lift the right knee and bring it back and out to the side. Then slide the left leg back a little bit until you start to pick up a delicate stretch in the right hip, outer thigh, or buttocks. Now the most important thing here is not to put any strain in the knee joint. The knee joint is very sensitive to twisting, and the cartilage is very unforgiving. If you damage cartilage, it's not easy for that to heal. So make sure your knee joint is completely happy with what you're doing. If it isn't, back off and then experiment. Shift around, try it again. Sometimes just a slight adjustment makes all the difference. If you can't find a position that works for the knee, just rest. You can come down onto your back or get a head start with a spinal twist. Now, if it is working, you can experiment with repositioning your back leg or your elbows or your shoulders, or shifting your hips left or right. Just looking for where you get the healthiest, most rewarding stretching sensations. Then use your exhale to relax into the stretch, into the sensation. 5 or 10 breaths. A breath or two. If it feels good, lean in a little deeper for the last breath. And then switching sides. Bring the left knee forward. Then lift the left knee, move it out to the side a little bit, and then begin walking the right leg back. If it feels okay, you can come down to your elbows or to your chest. And again, on the second side, make sure the knee joint is completely comfortable. Only then begin adjusting to try and get a healthy, pleasant, safe stretching sensation in the muscles, the outer thigh or the buttocks. Breathe deep, stretch the exhale. 5 or 10 more breaths on the second side. Two or three breaths. rolling onto your back for spinal twist. Bring both knees or just the right knee for a deeper stretch, and hug both knees or the right knee into your chest, and then roll to your left and turn the upper body back to the right. Now think about ever so gently expanding through the front of your body, and then ever so delicately contracting in the back muscles so you firm up. And then experiment between that and relaxing and anything in between. Occasionally move your right wrist or fingers, or bend the elbow slightly, or shift the elbow a little higher or lower. Just feeling your way, exploring the pose from the inside out. Two or three more breaths. Try to find the position where you can breathe, where you feel prana moving through the fascia, through the body, through the connective tissues. Coming back to center. Either roll both knees to the right or straighten the bottom leg, hug the left knee into your chest, and just roll the left knee over. Hold down with the right hand, and then turn the upper body back to the left. Experiment between relaxing and stiffening. Expand the front surface, contract the back, especially of the arms and the upper back and shoulders. Four or five more breaths. Experimenting with the wrists, the fingers, the elbows, feeling your way around the pose. When you're finished, hug both the knees into your chest.
Rock side to side. We're closing with Shavasana. You can keep your knees bent with your feet on the floor, hip width, or if you prefer, you can support your knees with a blanket rolled up underneath your knees, or you can lay flat. Feet spread a little wider than the hips. Lengthen the spine. Do that by lifting your head and chest, using your elbows for leverage, and then lengthen the back of your body, lengthen the back of your neck as you lower your head to the floor. Turn the palms up. Pull the shoulder blades together slightly. Above all, though, you want to be comfortable. So make any adjustments you need to be able to really, really relax without distraction. Close your eyes. And now notice how any pandiculation is expansion and contraction. This applies especially to yawning, which is a type of pandiculation. When we yawn, the face expands, the mouth opens wider, but the throat, the muscles in the throat and the fascia in the throat tightens. So see if you can feel that and really become more conscious of that phenomenon. Breathe out and then pause. When you feel the urge, breathe in slowly and then begin opening your mouth, and at the very top of your inhale, tighten your throat by pulling your bottom lip down. So yawning is a wonderful way to really explore pandiculation. And then when you become familiar with what it feels like to yawn, to expand and contract in such a way that the body starts to release oxytocin, nitric oxide, opiates. When you can do that with a yawn, you begin to figure out how you can do that with the rest of your body as well, expanding and contracting in just the right way. Relax fingers, hands, arms, and shoulders, the feet, the legs, the hips, the buttocks, low back, belly, ribs, chest, and shoulders. Back of the neck, and soften the throat. Jaws, the lips, the tongue, the mouth. The eyeballs, the space behind, beneath, around the eyes. Temples soft and hollow. Relax the scalp and the crown. Place your attention on your chest, more specifically on the heart. And as you breathe in, imagine a light glowing brighter and brighter in the chest, radiating out from the heart, and the heart expanding, growing larger. As you exhale, the heart contracts and softens and grows dim. As you breathe in, the heart expands and glows with light and energy, filling the whole chest with energy and prana. As you breathe out, the heart softens, melts into the back. And the more you relax, the more easily prana can move through the body. And as you breathe in now, and you relax more deeply, the light of the heart fills the entire body, glowing with light. And as you breathe out, the whole body softens. As you continue to relax even further, now relaxing not just the body but the mind. As you breathe in, the heart expands, glows brighter until your whole body glows with energy, but the energy radiates out from your body through consciousness. Imagine your field of consciousness expanding with this light. Softening, diminishing as you exhale. Settling back down to the heart. As you breathe in, let your sense of self expand infinitely on a wave of light. And as you breathe out, let your sense of self settle back, anchoring into the heart. The heart becomes your home, from which you expand outwards, only to come back. Now slowly begin to breathe a little deeper. And breathe in slowly in such a way that you trigger a yawn, opening the mouth, tightening the throat. Then do the same thing but with your whole body. Your arms and your legs and your fingers as well as your mouth. Yawning. And begin to stiffen and expand. Stretching. Pendiculating. But with your whole body. And then roll to one side.
And push up for a comfortable seated position. So this idea of expansion, contraction, and the space in between can be applied in a variety of different ways. But basically, at either extreme, we lose optionality. Things become very simple and small. Your choices become increasingly more and more limited at the extremes. And in the center, everything becomes infinitely complex. And some people fear that complexity, and so they retreat to the extremes. You'll see this in politics, in all kinds of areas of your life, but also in the yoga practice. Some people become really emphasize expansion. Some people get really stiff. Some people get very lazy. And those are all very simple states, which allows us not to think, not to be involved. It allows our mind to wander, to detach. And then we become like a machine going through our practice. But if we can find that space in the middle, and not just occupy the space in the middle, but explore it, to feel it, to explore that space in the middle, our practice becomes more rewarding. Okay? Whether we're talking about yoga or anything else in life. I'd like to thank you for joining me. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and I look forward to being able to work with you in person again soon. Thank you. Namaste.